Thank you very much for joining this presentation. My name is Caio Moreno. I'm going to talk today about generative AI using Azure OpenAI, which is a service from Microsoft. I believe we are all very aware of what is happening in the world now. Many people are talking about ChatGPT and all the advancement of generative AI. I'm not sure how many of you know what is generative AI, and not sure if you guys have heard about Azure OpenAI, or you are familiar with large language models. So I'm gonna try to do an introduction and then explain a little bit how you could start today using Azure OpenAI. There is a need to register for the service, but I'm gonna give you a demo. So my presentation is going to be introduction, and then later we're going to have a demo. If you want to connect with me, this is my LinkedIn. Feel free to send your questions to me or put in the chat. Happy to talk. I'm talking from London today. Beautiful day, very sunshine. Amazing to see the sun. So just changing my slide. Let me change here. Okay, so just before we talk about generative AI, I believe we all heard about what is artificial intelligence. So in around 1956, it was the beginning of this field, which is part of computer science. So most of the time, people that were researching artificial intelligence, they would be computer scientists, and they wanted to create machines that were able to replicate or to extend the human intelligence. So that was the goal. Later, 1997, there was another subset of AI, which is machine learning. So we have computer science, then artificial intelligence, then you have machine learning. And then this subset of AI, the idea was, can we use computers to learn from data and improve the way we decide, make some predictions? So typical use case of machine learning for most of us, I believe we all use emails. Emails have a spam detector, and a spam detector is able to basically decide if it's a spam or not, and in most of the time they use machine learning. Later, 2017, not so long ago, there was a big advance on another field, which is deep learning. And basically the idea is to use layers of neural networks to be able to process data and make decisions. So deep learning began to change the world, and we saw so many advanced, for example, image recognition, so many use cases that people use deep learn. And now, 2021, it's when we have generative AI. And in fact, let's say last year and this year is where things just explode. And then we're seeing people saying that computers are going to replace us. Many people will lose their jobs, and AI is going to do what most of us are doing. And so many things are happening that make us think, okay, what is generative AI? Why should I care? Why is this important to me? I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with this term, so I'm going to try to explain what it is. So it's basically using artificial intelligence to create new text, new visuals, and the idea is you're gonna use prompts, and you're gonna use like a lot of data, and this field is making a big change in how people work. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with prompt engineering. It's definitely a skill that many of us will start putting in our CVs, especially people that want to work with artificial intelligence. And it's basically writing in English instructions for your large language model to do something for you. And I'm going to give you an example about that. So when I do my quick demo, my live demo, I hope it works. I will show you guys this. So there are some tools available already in the internet. For example, Midjourney, I don't know if you guys heard about, where you can say, create me an image of like a mountain with a dog, and then you give some descriptions, maybe a sunny day, and then it's going to generate you an image. So people are generating many images using this type of tools, and this is using generative AI. So you can create new images. You can say, okay, write me an email and tell this person that I'm going to be late, and then this person should do this and that, and then the generative AI will create the text. So just to make it fun, I ask OpenAI to generate the description of this talk. So I said some words and asked the ChatGPT to create the descriptions of this talk, which is amazing. I try maybe 3, 4, 5 different versions, and then I just pick up one of them. So this is just an example how things are progressing so fast. So for this talk today, the description of the talk was generated by a computer. I just validate, and so yeah, it makes sense. This is what I want to talk about, and it worked very well. It saved me some time, and the result was great. So people are using generative AI to generate text, and I'm going to show you how you could do it. So this is just like an overview about all the progress, and it's not something that started yesterday. Microsoft is investing in OpenAI for a long time now, and then many companies are investing in large language models for the last years, and then this field is going very, very fast. So just so we can have a better idea of what generative AI is in Azure OpenAI. So I'm going to show you guys this service. And basically, this is what we call the Azure AI Studio, the chat playground. And if you see here, basically, you can talk to this chatbot and then ask some questions. And then in terms of OpenAI, the growth is amazing. If you think about how long it took to have like 100 million users for mobile phones, it took 16 years. For the internet, it took 7 years. For Facebook, it took 4.5 years. But ChatGPT took 2 months. So basically in 2 months, this technology achieved 100 million users, which is huge. So, and it's just growing and growing more. If you see the news, you're gonna see things like how the tech behind ChatGPT could change the world. It talks about OpenAI, the new DAL model that is able to draw anything. And it tells us like how things are progressing so fast. And there are many companies creating other models as well. So not just Microsoft and OpenAI. And then it's going very fast. It's amazing to see the growth. Maybe one of you guys are already also working with another model, which is not part of the OpenAI service. So all the large language models are progressing super, super fast. But what is that? So what is OpenAI, and why Microsoft, and why should we care? So OpenAI is a company, it's a research company that Microsoft invests, and they focus on creating artificial general intelligence for the benefit of humanity. And then Microsoft has the mission to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. So together, Microsoft and OpenAI have a partnership, and it makes available 3 types of models. One is GPT-3, and now we have GPT-4. And then there is Codex and there is DALL-E. So what are the difference between these three types of models? So for GP3, which now we have GPT-4 or GPT 3.5, it enables you to generate and understand text. So it can create you an email, create you maybe the description of your talk, like I did today, later when I present this talk. It can help you also understand text. So for example, if you have a big text and you want to ask, for example, could you find me something in this text? I'll give you an example. Imagine you have a clinical document which information is about a patient, and then you want to find the disease into this document. You can say this to your prompt, and then it's going to look into your data and it's going to give you, I'll show you an examples about doing something like that. And then you have Codex, which basically helps you to generate and understand code. And this is amazing. So if you are a developer, I believe most of you guys in this call will be probably a developer or trying to become a developer. You could use this model to say, okay, you say in English, write me a function that will maybe count or will print something or whatever you want, maybe a function that will read data from a place to another. So anything you want in terms of functionality, you can write, and then it's going to give you the code. So I see people using this for SQL, for example. Okay, create me a query that get all my customers. They are in London and they have age of more than 30 years. And then it's going to create you the SQL command that you could execute. You could do this in Python, could do this in Java or many languages, Scala. You can even say things like, okay, write me a code in PySpark that's going to help me train a machine learning model, for example. And the other one is DALL, is basically one that generates image and from a text. So you can say, okay, please generate an image of a mountain with a dog in a sunny day and maybe a Land Rover. And that is going to generate an image for you, totally based on artificial intelligence. So those three families of models, they have different versions, and the different versions have different power, and then we're going to talk about that. But they are the three families of different types of models that OpenAI together with Microsoft make available to customers. Talking about Azure OpenAI, so you see that the OpenAI service, it sits into what we call the customizable AI models. So you have the ML platform, and then you have Azure OpenAI there. So in our demo, I'm going to show you quickly how you could run Azure OpenAI from your Azure Machine Learning Service, and then you can try it by yourself. So basically, the way you're going to deploy this into your Azure subscription. You can basically leverage the use of this large pre-trained AI model, and also you can fine-tune your model, and then you can also use the integration with Azure, for example, things like the enterprise-grade security with role-based access control, and then private networks as well. And then in terms of capabilities, just some ideas, because you can do so many things, but you can use to summarize text, and that's what I see a lot of customers doing. Imagine you have a big document, and then you can ask OpenAI to read that document, summarize this to you. I see some of my colleagues, they write some big text, and then they say, oh, maybe I want to make this much better, succinct, and then you use OpenAI to summarize that, and then it helps to improve the quality of your text. People use for virtual assistants to classify text, generate image, create a poem, like as a writing assistant. Yeah, so many things, extracting insights from the data, language translator as well, because you could say, okay, read this text and then from English and translates to Spanish, for example, or French, or Chinese, or Japanese, or any language you wanted to do. Help you answer questions, and then many things like code, generate code as well. So in terms of the top capabilities and use case, as we spoke, is basically content generation, summarization, code generation, and semantic search. So one thing I see a lot for call centers, basically call centers can leverage this technology to summarize the calls and also try to understand the sentiment of the call. So there's so many use cases that you could do. So going further, there is this example of accelerator that Microsoft created, which you can read documents, for example, and then use things like Azure Form Recognizer. And then Azure Form Recognizer could read your documents and then use cognitive search. And then you can have, for example, OpenAI to extract some insights of that text. And later you can visualize this in a web application, or you could visualize this into Power BI. Another example is what we call the contact center analytics. And then this contact center analytics using speech AI, API, and the OpenAI. Imagine you have people calling a call center, and then you can put these calls into Azure storage, and then you can use speech to text to transcribe your calls from audio files to text, and then you can use OpenAI to get some insights from that call, maybe the sentiment. Also could find information inside that text. So many things you could do using Azure OpenAI, and then you could visualize that into Power BI, or even you could send this back to your CRM. This is an example of playground. So I'm going to show you guys the playground in a minute. So before we go to the portal and start playing with the tool, this is an example of playground. So if you see the deployment tab, it's using the text DaVinci 002. So the text DaVinci 002, this is the model that we are using. So if you see the first part of this example, you have the customer conversation. So for example, hi there, I just had a car accident and I wanted to report it. Okay, I hope you are ready, you are right, and in a safe place to have this conversation. So imagine that you have this conversation that just happened in your call center. So the Azure OpenAI instruction that you could give is, okay, extract the following from the conversation. So you write in English to Azure OpenAI. So your instruction, you write in English, and then you say, okay, I want you to extract the main reason of the conversation. I want you to extract the sentiment of the conversation. And you want to also, how did the agent handle the conversation? What was the final outcome of the conversation? And then also create a short summary of the conversation. So when you execute this into your service in the Azure OpenAI, as you can see here, you're going to get the response, which is the output. And the output is the main reason of the conversation was to report a car accident. So Azure OpenAI was able to capture that from the text using your prompt, your instruction, and then give you the output, which you could save into, for example, a database or into a file. And then it gives you also the sentiment. The sentiment of the customer was shaken up, but okay. The agent handled the conversation well and was sympathetic. So all the things you ask, it was returned as a prompt. So another example is if you want, for example, to get an output as JSON. So first you have the Azure OpenAI instruction in English. So it says, you must extract the following information from the phone conversation below. And then first you need to give the call reason. Then you need to say the cause of the incident, the names of all the drivers. So it's just you talking to the machine in normal English, giving the instructions. And then if you see it says, make sure fields 1 and 6 are answered very short. And also you say, please answer in JSON, machine readable format, and using the keys from above. And then you tell how you want to say. And you can even say, pretty print the JSON and make sure that it's properly closed at the end. So it's like you're talking to a human and you're describing what you want. And then Azure OpenAI is able to generate the output. So if you see the output, you have this JSON, which has the reason, car accident, the cause, the driver names, the insurance number, the location, damage summary. And I've been using this same idea with clinical notes, like documents from reports from hospitals, and then you could extract information from this reports. So how you improve your results, you can maybe write better instructions. So when you write a better instruction, it will improve the quality of your output. So for example, imagine you try and it didn't work very well. See if you can be more specific into your Azure OpenAI instructions. This is another example, but this one is the input is in German. So this is gonna you're gonna say, okay, generate a formal customer communication English, and then output into a letter format. And the input is in German, and then it's gonna give you what you asked. So this is the Azure OpenAI demo, like the portal. I'm going to show you into.
Hi, everyone. Today, I want to quickly show you how we are bringing OpenAI's powerful models into the Azure ecosystem to help developers both iterate faster and satisfy their enterprise requirements. Here you can see the Azure OpenAI Studio, which we built to help all skill levels prototype their ideas and bring their creativity to life. With our Studio UI and the flexible models from OpenAI, you can iterate on different use cases with the same models in UI. For example, here I'm going to ask the model to extract information from an email by including both the email and my question written in natural English. Or I'm going to ask the same model to convert a paragraph description of fruits on an imaginary planet into a structured tabular format. In my third example, we'll use the same model again to classify news articles. Finally, we'll use a different model, our Codex models, to generate documentation on the provided Python function, but still within the same UI. Once developers progress further in their journey, they can easily transition from this prototyping to fine-tuning and customizing their models all within the UI. Finally, when developers are ready to move towards a production application, they can leverage some of the more unique aspects of the Azure service compared to OpenAI's. We provide key enterprise promises with network security, privacy, and responsible AI tooling. For example, we enable authentication through Azure Active Directory so customers can securely access their fine-tuned models.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this demo using my portal as well, but that video gives you an example of how good you could and how easy you could use. This is an example as well, but imagine that you asking this question, and then you're using, for example, Azure OpenAI to give you, for example, the revenue and the operating income from the earning release. So some momentum, some customer momentum. So many customers are using. This is just an idea about customers that are using OpenAI, and also a little bit of the benefits. So it can help you to be much more productive and do it quicker. So better time to market. You can faster the time to realize value. So you can improve the experience of your customer. Even entry-level data science or business users can use Azure OpenAI Service Playground. You see how quick is it to use. And then you ensure data privacy and security is implemented in a responsible manner. So you don't need to require like a lot of annotation. So for those people that are familiar with doing NLP solutions, like it takes a lot of time. Also, you have less training data that is required. And then you have the ability to perform a lot of text analytics and and generation tasks. So just talking a little bit about the different models and different versions. So when you're talking about GPT-3, you have the ADA family, let's say, and the baggage, and the Curie, and the Da Vinci. So if you see this graph, the Da Vinci is the one that has more capability, but it takes more time to inference. So when you call, it takes more time. If you don't need that's the amount of specialization, let's say, that you have in Da Vinci, you might consider ADA, and the ADA is good for simple classification, parsing, and formatting text. So I recommend you try different versions. Maybe you try for your use case the other one, and then see how much is it, how bad it's performing against, let's say, Da Vinci or Curie. So they have different capabilities, and also the time it takes for you to call them. So in terms of codecs, there is the Da Vinci codex as well, Cushman codex, and then this graphic explain about the time and the capability. So what I personally do is I try to use the other one, and if it performs well, I stay with that one, or you can just go directly to Da Vinci and then use that one. But sometimes you don't need like a super big gun for something that is not required. So you can play with different types of models and see which one fits best your use case. But yeah, be aware that the Da Vinci one is the most capable one. So here's some examples of the families of the models. So the use case, for example, if you have complex intent, cause and effect, summarization for audience, probably Da Vinci is the most capable one. Can do basically any task the other models can do, but often with higher quality, longer output, and better instruction following. But then the other ones, for example, if you think about the other one, is capable of very simple text, usually is fastest model, but it also is a low cost. So it's good for parsing text, simple classification, address correction, keywords. So taking this into consideration. In terms of the use case, so we already spoke about many of them. So you guys will have access to the slides, but there's so many things you can do with OpenAI in terms of use case. So I'm gonna skip this. And just before we go to the demo, it's very important to think about things like responsible AI. So recently, Microsoft promote this global white paper called Governing AI. So it's a blueprint for the future. And one of my customers, NHS Northumbria, appeared in this white paper, which was presented by Brad Smith, Microsoft president. And this is a very good white paper, because it explains how you should think about using artificial intelligence, but in a responsible way, not just, okay, what the technology can do, but what should you do? So the technology is there, you could use it, but should I do it? Should I not? So some examples of how you do this in a responsible way. So there's some links that I will leave you guys to do it, to have a look. And now let's go to the fun part, because I prepared a demo, which I'm gonna now stop sharing these slides here. So let me close this here. I think you guys can see my family. Let me go to, I'll put my, I'm not sure if you guys can see my, okay, so this is the document that I mentioned to you guys, which you guys can have a look later. Let me go back to the portal. Okay, so can you guys see my portal? Okay, good. So So for those who are not familiar with Azure, this is the portal. So the Microsoft Azure Portal. I already created the mini Azure OpenAI service. And the way you do, this is my subscription. It's a demo one. And basically in this subscription here, I have a resource group, which I call Azure AI Demos. And this Azure AI Demos, I create some Azure OpenAI. If you see, this one is in Europe. And this week, it was made available in the UK South, which is good news. So if you click here on this Azure OpenAI, this is the service. So how do? I just create a new resource. If you put Azure OpenAI, you will find it here. So you need to create, and then you need to point it to a resource group. Basically, choose where you want, and then give a name. Okay, Caio test, and then I can put, let's say, June. And then if the price tier, I put it standard one. So then you click next, next, next. And then this is gonna deploy Azure OpenAI into your subscription. I already done that. So I'm gonna go back to this one. And then, for example, this one that is the one that I'm using. So if I go here, you see there are three things. One is the explore, the develop, and the deploy. So I'm gonna click here on explore. And then the explore is gonna direct you to the studio. Okay, so the studio give you like this chat playground, this DALL-E playground. So if we click here on, for example, chat playground, it's gonna give you a chat that you can do. And then this one, I think this one is more interesting. If you go here, I can say, okay, I want to use the DaVinci one. And let's see the examples we have. Okay, this one is generate an email. So if I click here, you say, write a product, launch email for a new AI powered headphones. So it tells you what you have to do. And then if you click generate, it's gonna create the text for you. So this is a live demo. Okay, so the one is what should be in the subject line of the email. So it's here. And the second is what should be in the body. So this is an example of using AI to generate text. There are other examples. For example, you could use this one, the classified text. Classify the following news headline into one. And then this, you have headline one, headline two, and then it basically classify as business. Let me show you this one, for example, is translate text. So translate the following to French and Spanish. So if you generate, so all those things that we're doing in the playground, we could also do in the API. So let me see if I can open my Visual Studio, which I'm gonna show you. I'm just gonna finish this demo here, and then I'm gonna show you how you could do this with Visual Studio, for those who are familiar. Another one that is very nice is you can use, let's say, natural language to write Python. So as I said, write a Python function to reverse a string. So you could say anything here that you want, and then you're gonna generate this code. And if you see here, it gives you the tokens, right? So if you click, our model understands and processes by breaking down into tokens. The total amount of content the models can process in a single API call is also limited by the total number of tokens in the call. So basically the token is what you pay for. So when you check the price for the service, you see that it's charged by tokens. So have a look into to this. So this creates you the function. This one, for example, I'm trying to go quick. Maybe I'm jumping some parts. It's a lot to talk in just a limited time, but I want to show you guys how we could start today and use this service. So if you see here, basically what we say, progress SQL table, we tell the properties and say, okay, query to list the names of the department which employ more than 10 employees in the last 3 months. This is very nice because I remember like once I had a colleague that she will basically write SQL. People come to her and say, I want to do this, and that, and then she will basically spend a lot of time writing those SQLs, which was something that they didn't invite, this team didn't enjoy a lot writing this. So in a situation like that, you could maybe train a business user, and then they will be able to use OpenAI to give the instructions, and then it generates the query, and then the person maybe could execute. This is one example. Or maybe even if you're a developer, you wanted to save your time, you could do this as well. So have a look on this later. For example, this one is to summarize issue revolution. So for example, this is the conversation. So it says generate summary of the below conversation in the following format. So the customer is looking for a place. This is still running. You see it's executing. The outcome of the conversation, customer is booked a hotel. So it gives you the departure city, the customer budget, the destination. So all came from this text. So giving the instruction and giving the text, what happened is it gave you the output. Okay, so in order to use this, if you go here to deployment, you see that there are some models that are already deployed here. And then what you can see is in the portal, right? Many examples and many documentations about. So now what I wanted to show is how you can use this in Visual Studio, and then I will open up for questions. I can see many people have questions, and I didn't read them yet. So do you see this here? This is my Visual Studio. So basically, I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I am connected to my Azure ML. So this is my kernel, which I'm running from here. So let me show you. If I go here, you see that inside my Azure AI demos, I have this, oh, no, I'm not using this one, sorry. This Azure customer demo, if you see here. Basically, I launched this studio, okay? This is the Azure AI, Azure Machine Learning service. And then I have a compute machine. So I'm not running in my computer, I'm running this remote. So if you see here, I have compute, and I have a machine running here, the CPU 3, Caio. Okay, so if we go here, you said this is connecting to that machine. Okay, so I'm connecting to my Azure ML customer demo, and then I'm running on that machine. So, okay, so this is a quick demo that Microsoft created. If you want, you can even click here on this learn, and then you see a quick start on how you could use it, Azure OpenAI. And then there is this Python example here, which you have to install the OpenAI library, and then you need to get the keys, you need to get the endpoint, and then this is an example of how you can use Python to call this API, and then you send a phrase, and basically, and it generates to you, give an output. So I'm going to show this into my Visual Studio. So first thing I've done, I install the OpenAI library in my remote machine. This is not in my local machine. And this tutorial basically helps you install the OpenAI library in your Python environment. Also, you load the libraries, and then you choose a model, and then you create a simple prompt to the model, and then you get the response. So doing that, it's installed in my computer, in my virtual machine. And then this example is gonna, after I finish this tutorial, I'm gonna delete my Azure OpenAI service. So this API key that you're seeing here is not gonna work. So, but I'm gonna run here. So yeah, so basically if you see, I have my API, it's running. And then basically now, what is my model? What is the right model that I should use? So in this case here, there are many options, and then you should understand which one the different things. But for this example, I'm going to use this text query 001. If we go back here to my portal, and I go to this one, you see that when you go to this deploy, and I'm trying to show you in the portal, but you could do this also from the API as well, from Python. You can do this by Python. So just gonna open this. I think it might take some time. So let's just jump. So okay, so I'm gonna use this text query, but you see that it's already there, it's available. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna submit a prompt. So this is my prompt. Should Oxford commas always be used? So when I submit this prompt, and then I make a simple API call, it's gonna give me the result. So this is the result that comes from OpenAI. Also gives my usage. So I use 11 tokens and 9 for the prompt, and then total of 20 tokens. This is how much I will pay. This is like, if I execute again, it says Oxford commas are generally used in standard English publications, although there is some variation between publication. So OpenAI create that text for me. This is another use case which you could summarize text, for example. Imagine that you wanted to send this text, okay, this huge text that I have, look how big it is. And I wanted to use the query, this is the model, and then please summarize this to me. So if I execute this code, you see that it did summarize the text. So it says, using a large data set of text to train a language model can improve task agnostic performance on new tasks, sometimes even surpassing the performance of fine-tuning methods. So from that huge text, it did summarize for me. So I will stop here. I will let you guys do it by yourself. There is also in the Microsoft Learn. So, okay, so this is the one that I use, okay, the text query one. So if you see, it was deployed. If you don't have maybe the one that you need, you can click here and select. Imagine that I wanted to use the this one. No, I already have this one, but let's think about one that I don't have. Maybe this one. You see, this one, it's not here. So I'm gonna call this one the same. So now what I'm doing, I am deploying new model. So now it says it's completed. So yeah, it's here. So if you see, I just did this today. So 13th of June, and it's here. So this is my model, which is available now. So I'm gonna stop now. I can see there are many comments in the chat and probably questions. Let me go back to my slide. So I finished the demo, which I wanted to give, and we quickly had a look about the service, explaining about the different families of models. how you could use the Azure ML and OpenAI together, and Visual Studio, and then how you could call the API and call the models, and also make the use of the different models. So just summarizing what are we seeing today in terms of presentation. So for you now, you have to register for the service,
Hi, everyone.
play with the playground, use Azure Visual Studio to try your examples. Just gonna jump this here. Sorry. Yeah, then I will leave you guys this text. So if you want to learn more about Azure OpenAI, this is the link. So you can have also speak with a specialist, and then thank you. I will answer questions now. Me stop sharing my screen. And thank you very much for your time. I hope it was useful. I think, let me see if okay, so I'm gonna respond some of the questions. So is Azure OpenAI Studio completely free to use? So it's not free. You need to register for the Azure Portal, and then yeah, you're gonna pay by token. So if you go to the Azure calculator, you select OpenAI, and then you can see the cost to use it. Can we host our own models using that? If you guys can also maybe mention if you're familiar with Azure OpenAI, if you're using, I think it would be nice to maybe put a comment in the chat as well. Or if you're using another large language model, maybe another one. So this is a very complex topic. I try to make an introduction and also give you guys an idea how we could start today. Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm gonna respond. So yeah, basically a lot of people ask about pricing and subscription. And do I need a Azure subscription? Yes, you do. And then you need also to create the Azure OpenAI service. Can you please show again how you connect the Visual Studio on your machine learning? Okay, so I can show you. Can we host our own models using that? So I can answer that question as well. Yes, you're going to use the models that were created by OpenAI. So you just need to call them. So you're not going to create your own models. In this case, you're going to use the ones that are available for OpenAI. If you want to create your own models, you could use Azure ML. So in Azure ML, you could go and create your own, let's say, larger language model. In the Azure OpenAI one, you use the ones that they are created for you. You can fine tune them if you want. So talking about how can you connect Visual Studio. So let me share my screen here. 1 second. Yeah, so for those who are using Azure, using Visual Studio, so let me share my screen. I will think yes. So, okay, so here into kernel, what I've done, I pointed to my Azure ML compute. So basically what you need to do is this tutorial here, which I'll paste the link. There is an example of how you could connect to Azure. So if you do an Azure login, it's gonna ask you to log in and put your code. And then, for example, if I click Azure account list, you see that when I execute that, it is connected to my tenant, my account. So you see I'm using this subscription, and then from here I can connect. And then into the portal, if you go here to my portal, I have this Azure customer demo. And then if I go to Launch Studio and I go to the Azure ML, you see that I have a compute machine. So in my compute, but you don't need to run from a compute remote. So this one is the one that I'm running. So this machine, which is a GPU machine, an NVIDIA, quite a big machine, is the one that I'm using. But you can run locally as well. So for example, instead of running this code here into a remote machine, this one is, I'm selecting my remote machine. You could just select another kernel. So if you want, let's say you can select another kernel. You see that there's this Azure ML compute instance, but you could use your Python local, your local Python. In my case, I click here, Azure ML compute instance, and then I see I have these machines here, and then there's some plugins that you can install as well to make sure that, for example, I have one here for Databricks, I have one here for Azure, so you could install plugins in your Visual Studio. So I hope I answer all the questions. I'm gonna stop now sharing and check the chat. If someone wants to go and maybe, I don't know if you guys can talk in the using the microphone, but feel free to. Okay, so there's one more. Can we create customized large language model in Azure AI? Yes, you can do it. If you use the Azure Machine Learning Service, or you can use maybe Azure Databricks, you can create your own large language models. Let me have a look in the chat. So, okay, ChatGPT can do all you have mentioned here in the train, just asking if you can convince me what you say. Sorry, maybe I didn't get the question. I didn't really get. So I don't know. Are you trying to you want me to convince you of? I didn't understand the question. Sorry. Someone said GPT can do all you have mentioned here, but ChatGPT is basically the same thing. So ChatGPT was created by OpenAI, and OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT. So it's the same thing. So I'm not showing something different. Maybe you're mentioning about going directly to OpenAI, right? And then OpenAI, the company that creates ChatGPT, maybe you're talking about that. Just so you can just maybe go into the mic and help me understand the question. But yeah, exactly, it's the same thing. So when you use Azure OpenAI, you are using the same large language model behind ChatGPT. So but the difference is, in this case, when you use Azure OpenAI, you're running this on your own Azure environment, which comes with the enterprise features. Let me see if, so guys, I'm not sure if I think I answered. Thank you very much.